All right, let's bring in Steve Gill. Steve Gill, thank you for joining us here on the
Steve.
TMI show. It's like old times. It's like Steve is my former co-host on my old show, The Final Countdown.
By the way, on the last points, I wonder how the next generation of young warfighters who are training from 12 or younger until they go into the military on Call of Duty, and the point and shoot kind of mindset that puts in place. Now again, you can't put the reset button when you get shot and killed like you do on Call of Duty, but I know that in the military they're finding that people are coming in with no previous weapon skills who have great capacity to point, shoot, and use weapons, even though they never touched these weapons because they've literally learned on Call of Duty and these other first-person shooter games. So what does that do to a mindset of point, shoot, kill rather than point, think, shoot, kill?
Well, there's also, Grossman in this book that's now kind of old, right? I think it's like 20 years old. So I'm sure the training has evolved that much further. But he said that even back then, there was a partnership between a lot of gaming companies and the Pentagon. And the Pentagon was using video games to help train soldiers in this sort of like very quick, don't think a lot about it, just like boom. I mean, obviously you want to distinguish between civilians and adversaries. But still, it's like, I worry about how that's processed. I mean, my grandfather was in the French Resistance, and he lived at the bottom of a bottle the rest of his life after World War II, even though he was a hero, because, he killed people. And it was hard. Killing people, about 98% of people aren't good at it. Psychologically, they're not really built to do it.
It's interesting when the first time I embedded in Iraq a couple of times, and with military troops, and one of the first times I went through a training session of kind of clearing the room and going through one of the mock towns of kind of how they go through what they do before they go into actual combat, and in this training session, this kind of clearing a house, they were using airsoft guns, but they were using the metal ones that had much more of the feel of real weapons rather than sort of the plastic ones that that kids were using. So I'm going through this room, and there's balloons set up, and there's hostages, and man, I'm popping through there with my airsoft guns, knocking stuff out, killing the balloons, not the hostage, killing the terrorist. And one of the military guys goes, "Man, are you prior military?" It's like, no, I've got teenage boys. We play airsoft in the backyard almost every day. So those training exercises do come in handy sometimes.
Now, my daddy, kind of like with your granddad, similar story. He was a Korean War veteran. He was in the Navy. He was in Seoul when the North Koreans went across the border. Long story short, he was a gunner on a cruiser. He ended up getting up with a bunch of Marines because he got left. And the Marines ended up keeping him because if you go up shooting squirrels with the 22 in Northwest Florida, shooting a human with M1 Garand is not that much of a stretch. So the Marines actually ended up keeping him. So that's, to your point, that haunted him for the rest of his life. But he was very good at what he did, but it broke him mentally.
I think that happens a lot. So anyway, speaking of things that could break someone mentally, or maybe in this case may have been broken earlier. So the suspect, who appears to be probably the shooter, right, Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, has been arrested in Pennsylvania, in Altoona. He's awaiting extradition to New York City to face charges by Alvin Bragg, our very famous DA here. He's going to be charged with the shooting of Brian Thompson, who was the CEO, 50 years old, of United Healthcare. And obviously, I think it's fair to say that no high-profile death or murder in the United States in recent memory has been greeted with so much glee, jokes, happiness, positivity than this.
That's
and
crazy.
Depending on your point of view, either that's a sick indictment of our society and its coldness and callousness to a loss of life, or it's a reflection of the incredible hatred and frustration Americans from left to right have with the health insurance system, or maybe it's both, or maybe it's something else entirely. Steve, what's your take? And then we can get into the legalities.
I think it was not surprising at the outset that, the speculation immediately was that this had something to do with with a denial of claims. And this is even before they found the bullet cartridges and those sort of things. I was telling people immediately that this hit had all the appearances of somebody that had a real problem with the insurance company, that it wasn't, some, spousal issue or just some random act. And I think that's been borne out. I think the interesting thing is what turned this guy. And again, was it the medical condition? Was it, something that changed his mental state after he suffered from both the surgery and the medicines? When you've got all these medicines that he would have been on, the contraindications, if you take this and it does something literally to your brain in a way that would convert this kid from, by all accounts, kind of an outstanding all-American kid, who had the world at his fingertips in terms of wealth and prosperity and prestige. Something happened to change his brain. And again, whether it's the medications that he was on, whether it was the pain that he suffered because of his back injury, I think there's a lot still to be answered here. But I agree with you, Ted. The laughter, the humor, the joy at anybody being gunned down who's simply a corporate CEO. He's not there stamping denial on forms. He's not the one making the decisions. And so much of what happens in the insurance industry is dictated by the rules and regulations that the federal government puts in place. It's no different than what you see, whether it's under Obamacare or anything else. There are limits to coverage. There are limits to what we can afford as a country. We don't see people getting really intense surgical procedures when they're 92 years old and they have 4 or 5 complications. We're not spending money to spend the last dime to save every last person. So there are decisions that have to be made, and many of them are economic. And it leaves people feeling like they're confused and that they're being disregarded and treated in a contemptible manner. So it's not surprising that there are these sorts of responses from time to time by those who are victimized by the system. What shocks me is those who are simply cheering the assault on a human because they felt like they might have been denied a claim at some point, or the confusion of having to fill out these forms. We've just gone through the Medicare renewal plan where you're getting your supplemental insurances. I was telling my insurance agent lady, how do poor dumb people do this stuff? I'm educated and I don't have a clue what we're doing. There's all these different options and changes, and do you buy this, do you buy that, do you get this coverage? It's confusing even on the front end of picking whatever plan you're gonna pick. Not much less when you start getting bills from the hospitals, and your doctor charges this, and then the radiologist charges this, and then there's another charge for this, and again the $20 aspirins that show up on your bill. It is a broken system, but it's still in many ways, and Ted and I may argue about this, what a better system than what we see in other countries. Where in England, you go to the emergency room and you've got an 18-month wait before you get to see the doctor in the emergency room. It's cheaper there because you're dead before you get the coverage. So there's problems with all the systems.
Well, Steve, you gave me a lot to argue with there. So, first of all, I'm going to just say it's not like there aren't long waits here in our system. I got to tell you, more often than not, one of the reasons that urgent care has become so popular is because, you can actually see someone, on a Sunday, let's say, and you can see someone pretty quickly. It might not be the best doctor, but it's a doctor, and you can do it. If you need to see a specialist, it's hilarious sometimes where it's like my pulmonologist sometimes isn't available for days. And it's kind of like, so if I'm having trouble breathing, do you really think I can wait till next Thursday? Probably not, and if I can wait till next Thursday, I probably don't need to come in and see you. So it's, and certainly, I take your point about federal regulations, but when you look at a company, and United Healthcare is the biggest, and they're the most prominent because of the story, but any of these companies, they do make decisions about what percentage of claims they want to approve and which ones they don't. United Healthcare and other companies have actually been accused of using AI bots to deny literally a claim faster than 1 in a second. Now, I'm sorry, I don't really think that some bot can carefully consider whether your claim is valid in 0.8 seconds. And I think, basically people you're already sick. And when you're sick, it does affect your mental state, even if you just have a cold, right? And so you're sick. You don't need any extra nonsense. And, insurance companies provide you with a lot of extra nonsense. The forms you alluded to,
right.
the routine denials, like where literally they'll deny you and they know it's a valid claim. According to reports, anywhere between 32 and 38% of in-network claims by United Healthcare, in-network, right? These are their trusted doctors, the doctors that they like, the doctors that they've approved of, that they've checked out, and they reject their claims 1 out of 3. I mean, that's wrong.
There's no question that the system is set up, deny everything, make people challenge so that they eventually get it, or
So
maybe
they give
it
up.
gets written down a little bit. And then it's also forced doctors into the game playing of, okay, I'm going to write this code, even though
Right.
that's not really what I'm doing, in order to maneuver and play the game to get the coverage done. I recently had a health issue involving my heart, so I've been assigned to cardiac rehab to go in and work out, with monitors on 3 times a week for 36 sessions. Interestingly, only about 8% of people who get assigned to cardiac rehab complete all 36 sessions, which is what the insurance companies and the hospitals and the doctors recommend to make sure that you go through all of this process, you get your heart healthier and strengthened. And yet I was just informed yesterday when I was at cardiac rehab that, oh, by the way, we're going to come into a new year. So you're not going to get all of your 36. You're going to have to talk to your insurance company. You're going to be reset under your insurance plan. So starting in January, whatever your deductible is starts over, and these sessions cost $300 a session. So basically it's like I should have had my heart attack earlier, so I could have got my 36 all in before the new year. But it's these kind of things, and then we add in. I mean, Ted, we've talked in the past, and Robbie on other shows, that the 3 big problems we have in this country, and I'm going to go beyond just the big insurance, but you got big pharma, you got big food, and you got big military, big defense, and all of those 3 contribute to most of the problems that we have as a society, as a country. Big food creates the problems that big pharma tries to fix, or not fix, put you on medications rather than some of the other options. So, again, we've talked, Ted, in the past, that as a lawyer, one of the biggest problems with our medication cost, and the reason it's cheaper in Canada and other countries, is 25 years from now, after an FDA drug has been approved and has been used, they find a problem with it, even though it was approved, went through all the process, and these companies can still get sued. Whereas in Canada and other countries where you don't have this kind of looming threat of litigation decades later, the drugs are cheaper because they're not having to build in a profit with a relatively short patent period, or the threat of 30 years later, somebody saying, did you use this particular drug 30 years ago? Contact Dewey, Cheatham and Howe today, and we'll sue them on your behalf. So they're having to stash cash to deal with litigation that may come 30 years down the road. So we've got a lot of problems in the healthcare process, but people still come here from all over the world because we've got the best procedures, the best processes, and the best doctors in the world, apparently.
If you can afford it.
If you can afford it, because kind of like what how you just talked about with the claims. My wife is a coder, so you're talking about the codes. I mean, she is neck deep in it. With my day job, I go through and I build the medical charts. So we're just kind of both in this world. And what most people don't realize is that the insurance adjusters, they have quotas about how many claims they're supposed to deny that are in network. Like it is a quota system about how am I going to screw my paying customers? And to me, I mean, that is sickening. For example, if I work at a hospital here in Montana, if I slip on some ice, which could very well happen, I'm in Montana, it's 18 degrees outside, it's colder than a witch's tit. If I go outside, if I slip and break my arm, then I should, the pre-authorization goes in. If I go see an orthopedic doctor who works for the hospital that I work at, under no circumstance should that claim ever be denied, because I'm already paying for a service that through my employer, I should have it. But that's not how it works. And they just drag this stuff out. And, especially in rural areas where you got to figure, am I going to pay this medical copay, or am I going to buy groceries this month, or am I going to pay my utilities, or am I just going to put up getting sicker and sicker and sicker? Most people are just going to unfortunately, they're going to let their health take a back seat and just keep getting sicker until it gets more and more expensive.
By the way, Robbie,
the entire system is corrupt.
Talk about false advertising. Have you noticed that Yellowstone never shows the brutal, harsh winters in Montana? It's always the green fields and beautiful pastures. They never show the harsh winters in Montana on Yellowstone.
Funny story. I met a Californian who came up here because of that show yesterday at Wally World, and me and my family kind of stick out because my wife is the only black woman here in town. So we were talking. Going shopping, and this person came up and said, "Oh, are you visiting here?" I said, "No, we live here." And he heard my accent, said, "Well, where are you from?" Explained it to him. So, how do you live here? It's so cold. I'm going to go back to California. I said, "Please do. Please do. Montana's full. Go back."
Montana's not really full, but okay. All right. Well, we'll go with that. So, guys, we went online here on the show, and we solicited healthcare horror stories. And I just want to play one that an audio of a guy who it's worth listening to, and then I want to hear what your take. This is his personal healthcare horror story, and it's up close and personal at the scene of the shooting. Here we go.
And we're just a product. Here in New York City, I got to wait 6 months just to get a physical from my own doctor. Wow, look at all these nervous executives. 6 months I gotta wait. This is my own doctor. Why? Because it's a volume business. And even then, they didn't catch my PSA level rise for 5
sorry. I mean, I got it. Why is he at the
years?
It's not at the beginning. That's
pretty
annoying.
Serious, right? Maybe I should have been reading my own numbers.
Here we go. Let me play.
I'm at the site of the shooting of that healthcare insurance executive when he was attending an investors conference. Pretty messed up. But then again, when you think about healthcare and investments, it makes you feel like this is a volume business and we're just a product. Here in New York City, I gotta wait 6 months just to get a physical from my own doctor. Wow, look at all these nervous executives. 6 months I gotta wait. This is my own doctor. Why? Because it's a volume business. And even then, they didn't catch my PSA level rise for 5 years. Look at this graph. That looks pretty serious, right? Maybe I should have been reading my own numbers, but let me repeat. I'm not a doctor. What do I know? That's their job. But how can they do their job when so many patients are forced upon them? So they did nothing about it until it was too late, and they actually had to take out my prostate. And then 3 days before my surgery, my insurance company says, "Hey, we're not covering you. Your doctor's out of network." Who needs this kind of stress 3 days before my surgery? A $250,000 surgery. And this is after a $7,000 MRI, a $68,000 PET scan, and a $12,000 stress test. Let me tell you, I failed that stress test. And these hospitals still need money from people like Ken Langone. They named their hospital after him. The founder of Home Depot. Makes sense. No wonder I feel like such a tool. The insurance companies and the hospitals, they work hand in hand to maximize their profits and minimize our humanity. And these doctors, who are mostly good people, they're kind of stuck in the middle because the insurance companies tell the hospitals you can only have a certain amount of time with each patient. So even though they're doctors, they're still working for the man, just like you and me. I don't think anybody should get shot and die just for doing their job. But by the same token, no patient should die because they can't afford a shot. This is your healthcare system. This is your healthcare system on drugs. I'm at the site of the shooting.
All right. I think that was pretty compelling.
Yes. Ted, I have to say, I've gone through some healthcare issues recently, and I've made the worst mistake I could have done. I started binge watching episodes of House. So now every day I wake up thinking, oh, I've got a little bit of a headache. I think I have a tumor complicated by African sleeping sickness. Do not watch House if you're having any healthcare issues, because you're going to be a hypochondriac thinking of about 40 different things you could have every time you stub your toe.
Yeah, Dr. Google will do that to you too. It's like, oh, do I have disease X from the Democratic Republic of the Congo? Sounds like it, maybe. Here's the thing. We have a new president coming in, a new old president, and I'm really curious. Donald Trump is not really shy in retiring. about commenting on matters of public interest. Yet he's had nothing to say about the shooting of Brian Thompson, allegedly by Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione's biggest problem might be like all the women trying to break in to get him and take him away with them. Trump has to be taking note of the fact that Americans are really, really, really pissed at the health insurance industry. Do you think there's any chance that he's a lame duck, basically? He doesn't have to worry about, in a way, he's got remarkable freedom. He's 81 years old. He doesn't owe anything to anyone, right? He can do whatever the hell he wants. Trump's 78, right? But anyway, the point is he's free, right? He could try to fix this in a way that no one since Harry Truman has tried to fix it. Is there any chance that that'll happen?
I think part of the reason that Trump has not commented is that this is the new Trump 2.0. He has not been given, giving these hour, off book, speeches. He's only given a few short comments, 10, 15 minutes, kind of at the max. I think when he did the Fox News Patriot Awards, he only spoke for about 15 minutes. He's tweeting some, but he's not even doing I've got to comment on everything all day, every day. So it's a more restrained and more focused Trump. So I think, part of it is that he's not commenting on everything or going on these kind of expansive, here's what I think we should do about everything. By the same token, I think that between what RFK Jr. is going to be doing with Make America Healthy Again, you will hopefully reduce some of the claims, some of the pressures on our healthcare system. Again, we're putting poison into our foods and then eating it, in massive amounts. The diabetes numbers, the obesity numbers. We are so unhealthy in this country. If we can get healthier and also fix the healthcare system and the health insurance system, I think those all kind of go hand in glove. And it'll be interesting to see how they navigate all of those different pieces, moving forward. And I think, first of all, getting America healthier is going to be a big step in the right direction.
So I have a question, because you mentioned Trump 2.0. The Republicans came in. Trump won, and the Republican Party also won by a pretty resounding mandate, in the last election. Do you think that there would be any action to break up the monopoly? For example, if I'm here in Montana, I guarantee you or Ted to be able to buy cheaper insurance here from Montana than what y'all can in New York or Tennessee. Why is it that the government has these government protected monopolies that by definition, why wouldn't the party that says it is in favor of free market capitalism and small government break up the monopolies that by definition infect the government?
Yeah, this is back, Ted and I, when we were still doing our show together, we're coming up with all these great new business ideas, and the Ted, Robbie, and Steve health insurance company, if we could reduce some of the regulations and find a way to do it differently, maybe another opportunity. Look at what you have with these kind of Christian coalitions that have started, where you basically pool your money and then you contribute to the system, and then it pays your healthcare costs. Those have been able to kind of navigate outside the scope of regular insurance. I don't know how well they're doing. I don't know how well those coverage payouts are taking place. But I think more innovation, more creativity is good, when we're talking about anything virtually.
Sure.
And hopefully they will start to break up some of these monopolies. You've got some states where some of the big health insurance companies are dropping off. Okay, we're not going to do business in that state anymore, which again reduces the coverage, reduces the opportunities that people have to get health insurance. But keep in mind, Robbie, insurance is always a gamble. It's a bet.
Sure.
They're betting that you're going to pay a lot of money and not get sick. You're betting that you're going to get sick and it's going to cost you less because you have health insurance than it would if you were just out there naked with no coverage. The same way with car insurance. They're betting you're not going to have a wreck, and you're betting you're going to have a wreck. So again, it's all a gamble and a bet, and they're trying to calculate what's the teeter-totter effect of where do they make money versus losing money on who they're gambling against.
I'm here in Montana. And I'm here in Montana. I'm just north of the Flat Indian Reservation. I know all about gambling. All right. I mean, that's what we got here. At least if you're going to gamble with insurance, like any kind, the house always wins. That's fine. But you can at least go to the house that's going to give you a free buffet ticket, maybe have a cute waitress blow in your ear and give you a cold Coke instead of just bend you over against the table. I mean, let me pick my treatment.
Well, I mean, I got to say, Steve, I mean, the thing is, like with auto insurance, right? Like that's, I've made claims to my auto insurance company, which is Geico, and they paid. I think that's the difference, right? Like if I go to like Harrah's, and I happen to have that full house, and I win, they give me my chips. The problem with like companies like United Healthcare is, oh yeah, we know you're sick. And technically we lost that bet, but we're going to be like, la, 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 we can't hear you. And they play all sorts of games. Like, for example, they deliberately have, like, okay, when I first moved to New York City from Eastern Long Island, I got a new health insurance company because health insurance in this country is by county under the Affordable Care Act, right? I'm in a different county, in New York County, in Manhattan. And so I immediately need a new PCP, personal primary care physician. So I go onto the Fidelis website, type in my zip code. I get like a list of like 50 doctors. I call the first one. No, we don't take United. Second one, we never took United. Third one, the doctor died like 6 years ago. Fourth one, the practice no longer exists. No, we no longer carry it. Literally, I went through the entire list of every single physician in Manhattan who was listed on the website. None of them took it. And it turned out that the list hadn't been updated and probably never really was correct, but it hadn't been updated in many years. I mean, it seems to me like, look, I want socialized medicine. I want like to go to a government clinic with like a hammer and sickle outside where everybody, the doctors and the nurses are all working for the government. But until we get that, can we get some basic reforms? Like if a doctor's in network, you got to pay. If the doctor is overprescribing and stuff, that's not your problem. That's between the insurance company and the doctor. And the insurance company wants to kick them out of network, they can do that. If the doctor is listed as in network on the website of the insurance company's got to pay. They got to keep their list up to date. In which they gin up these lists of fake doctors that are network to screw over other doctors who are in their network to say your rates have to be lower because there's so much competition in your area, even though it's fake competition and it's not real. So, I mean, it's got to be reined in.
You've got a lot of doctors that are not accepting Medicare or Medicare Advantage,
right?
Because they slow pay the doctors. So it's like, dude, I got to pay my nurses, I got to pay the light bill. I can't wait 90 days till you pay me when I've got to pay stuff before then. So again, as Robbie pointed out, I mean, the whole system needs an overhaul. And again, with Trump having only a one term, he doesn't have a second term looming potentially ahead. He's got a narrow window of opportunity, about 18 months to get stuff done. So he's got to hit the ground running. He's got to do everything he's going to do because everybody's going to focus on midterm elections in about 18 months. They're already focusing on presidential election 4 years from now. So I think he recognizes he has a narrow window. I think the people he's assembling recognize that, and they're going to come in and try to get as much done on all fronts right from the get-go. I had a chance to have dinner with Tom Homan last night, the new border czar, and he made it clear. I mean, they're planning shock and awe from day one to deal with the cartels, to find the 350,000 missing children, to lock down the flood continuing to come across. And again, to deal with the fentanyl and the sex trafficking that the cartels are operating in Mexico and bringing into our own country. And he indicated that he believes Trump will declare these cartels to be a terrorist organization to free up the military to go after them in Mexico and anywhere around the world. And really, again, that shock and awe will begin from day one.
Would the Mexican government, I've got a lot of questions about Tom Homan, would the Mexican government allow the U.S. military into Mexico to assist with that? Or I mean, obviously, we're not going to invade Mexico again.
Well, the problem with Mexico is it is a cartel, corrupt run regime, both financially and politically. And we're starting to see the same thing, no pun intended, bleed over to our side of the border as the cartels are here. And they're going to law enforcement saying, look, accept our money, or we're going to kill your whole family. And not surprisingly, some, border sheriffs and police are saying, yeah, I'll take the money. Mexico's not going to willingly say, come clean them out. And it's interesting, you've seen kind of a flip-flop back and forth with the president of Mexico when she's, was suddenly claiming, okay, we're going to, deal with Trump and the tariffs, and we're going to stop the flow of illegals. And then apparently the cartel called and said, oh, wait a minute, ma'am, we still own you. So she backed off of that. I'm not sure they'll have much choice because economically, she'll either get destroyed by the cartels or destroyed by the U.S. She doesn't have really good choices.
Let me tell you how President West would handle this, because Ted may be president at the top of the show. Here's how President West would handle this. President West would round up every illegal migrant he could find. He would deport every last damn man, woman, and child of them, every single one. You're gone. And if a country will take them back, you cut off all their foreign aid, you end all remittances, you crush them economically, and then that money, then put that into Medicaid, so that way American people could actually start getting health care. That's America first. Screw the rest of the world. Take care of your own.
It may be close to that. I think one of the things that he made clear last night again at dinner that they're targeting the criminal illegals, those that are creating the violent crimes, the hundreds of thousands that are here that have committed crimes here and abroad. The also hundreds of thousands are kind of next on the target list of those who have been ordered to be deported and have ignored the laws and the deportation orders. They're going to be looking for them next. They're not looking for people who've been here, 20, 25 years that have been operating as good citizens throughout that time. They are going to be looking at the millions that have come in the last 3 or 4 years and booting them out, not the ones who've been here for a long time.
What about the ones who've been here for 3 or 4 years? What about the ones who've been here for 3 or 4 years but haven't committed any crimes, have just worked hard and followed the law?
Well, except for the crime of being here illegally. I think they are going to target those, but I don't think they're going to drag them out of schools and workplaces. I think what they're going to do is focus on, you're not going to get any benefits. You're not going to get any economic assistance. You're not going to get food stamps or anything else like that. And basically, if we find you, and you've just come in the last 3 or 4 years, if we find you after January 21st, you will be deported and you will never, ever, ever, ever be granted the opportunity to come back into the U.S. as a tourist or for a green card. But if you leave on your own, we're going to set up a better system for people to apply to come in legally.
Is there any distinction between asylum applicants who followed who went through the app system, presented themselves to the Border Patrol, and then were admitted, or any distinction between them and what they call the gotaways, or are they all kind of being lumped together into the recent arrival bin?
I think they're going to be lumped together as the Biden bogus asylum claims of, they were given a script of what to say, none of which may actually be true. Some of these people who are claiming asylum because they had to leave such terrorist, horrible places have gone back to their home countries as visitors and guests. I don't think they're really afraid if they've gone through 12 different countries to get here. And I think, again, the focus on those and the bogus claim system that the Biden administration set up is going to be retracted pretty quickly.
Wow. Do you know what kind of powers so let's just say Trump does what you said. I mean, he declares the cartels to be terrorist organizations. Maybe he declares a state of emergency on day one. He said that he would do that. I don't know if he would or not. But how much power legally, how much leeway does Tom Homan and the Trump administration writ large have to conduct mass deportations on this scale? That's question one. Then the political question, what about the optics? Some of this, there's going to be women and children screaming, being loaded onto vans in cities. It's going to be ugly. Some of it's going to be on TV. Will the administration press forward regardless of the heat that they take?
Can I answer this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me tell you how I handle these optics, because you're right. I mean, the media is going to play it. Here's how I would do it. Okay, so you got these people here who are here illegally. They broke the law to come here. The way that President West will handle this, and I'm hoping this is how the Trump administration does it, I would then take cameras to the homeless American women and kids living in cars, living under bridges, and say, why are these people worth less than some schmuck who came across the border? Sorry, you take care of your own first.
Well, and why are we putting people up in New York City hotels, 14,000 of them at $392 a night? I did an interview the other day with one of the local stations here in Nashville, and the reporter was pressing, saying, well, it's going to destroy the hospitality industry and the construction industry. Who will pick the vegetables? I said, the 14,000 guys living in Manhattan in hotels aren't picking a lot of vegetables in Manhattan. So those are the first 14,000 that need to be deported immediately back to whatever country they came from. Ted, I think you're right, Ted, that the focus is going to be A, through executive orders, B, through the self-deportation. And keep in mind that President Obama, President Biden have deported millions of people. So the idea that the media is going to go, ape shit crazy over Trump doing the same thing, probably in less numbers, is just part of what the media is doing. But keep in mind, about 70% of Americans want all of them deported. So the media is going to be on the wrong side of that edge. So somewhere between 70% of Americans wanting all of them deported and getting rid of the criminals, the violent ones, the ones that have come in here recently that have really broken the rules. I think it's going to be an easier job.
What's going to happen? And I'll make this the last question and let you go, Steve. And this has been great. Thank you for coming on. I got to ask you, what's going to happen when some people are deported back to their countries of origin, and they're killed by like a cartel, or they were a political dissident in that country, and something happens to them, they're tortured or killed or whatever. Those reports are going to be widely disseminated. As you say, the media doesn't have a lot of sympathy for the Trump administration. They're going to play that up. I mean, there's going to be heat.
Oh, I agree. And again, I think those are going to be the highlighted stories, but the death toll of Americans at the hands of these illegals far outnumbers the one or two that are going to be legitimate asylum seekers from some country where they have been politically oppressed. Most of them are here to get jobs, to get freebies. And again, when you look at what's going on in Europe and other places, they're dealing with it aggressively because they're getting the same pushback from their citizens. And I think that Trump's going to get massive support from those who will understand we've got to do two things. We got to stop the flood coming in. If my pipes burst, I don't start putting up new wallboard and painting. I stop the flow of water first. So we got to stop those that are coming in now. Then you start, extricating those who are violent, those who are serious criminals, those who've lied in order to get into the country, those who've ignored deportation orders. And let's go find those 350,000 kids that the Biden administration has admittedly lost.
Okay, Steve Gill, thank you so much for joining us. So great to see you and talk to you again. Steve Gill is a conservative talk radio host based in Nashville, currently doing TV and radio commentary in the U.S. and internationally. Steve attended the University of Tennessee, where he got an undergraduate degree in history and a JD. He served as Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the U.S. Trade Representative in the Executive Office of the President under both the Bush and Clinton administrations. So great to see him. It's I'm skeptical that this administration will go as far as they say, because every politician overpromises, underdelivers. Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, and I'm also wondering to what extent liberals will really care. My mom and I have had a conversation when Bush started using drones in places like Pakistan. And I was appalled. I said, people are going to freak out. You're using, killer robot, toy robots to blow people up. And she said, they're not going to care. No one's going to care. These are brown people. No one cares. And I suspect, I keep thinking that might be the same thing here.
It's hard to say because I love candidate Trump. President Trump, though, has sold us out so many times. I'm talking as a MAGA conservative, right? 2016, I was his biggest supporter. Now it's just like he's just more of the same. Trump says the right things. The problem is that he is owned by the special interests. He's owned by the people who want to keep wages low. Well, how do you keep wages low? You import migrants. Well, then what do? How do you get the right and the left to start fighting each other? It's just like what you just now heard. You have people who are like me, like I want to deport every last man and child of them, get them out, and then all of a sudden,
what about the dreamers? Would you do that too? Like
people
who basically came as luggage 16 years ago, They're
You're
16
gone.
years old. They can't speak the language at all. They're basically American. They're as American as you and me, culturally.
Yep. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, my whole thing is like, nope, sorry, you're gone. And then what you do is that you start paying Americans an actual wage that is sustainable, because how you talked about how inflation is going to keep going up, it's never going to go back down.
Yeah.
Well, that means you've got to actually start paying people what they are worth, because if you don't, what's going to happen is that the working class people, they're like ground into dirt. And until you start having more Luigis coming out, you're going to start having more and more and more friction. You're going to start having more and more breakdown of society, because people, when they get to where you have to decide, am I going to go to the doctor because I have pneumonia, or am I going to buy dinner, or am I going to buy groceries for the next week?
Yeah.
That's an unsustainable model. And
I mean, the thing is, but Robbie, we've talked about, I mean, the thing is, we've talked about the birth, the fertility crisis, something Elon Musk has talked about. He's not wrong. He's doing his part. He has 10 kids. But we have a fertility crisis in this country. Now, obviously, if I had my druthers, we'd have a communist system and we wouldn't have the following issue. But in the capitalist system that we have that's based on consumerism, the GDP has to increase about 2 to 3% per year in order to just sort of not to avoid a recession or a depression. Right, so the economy has to constantly expand every year. Now, if you have a big leap in technological efficiency, like let's say AI, that'll get you through some of those low birth rates period. The economy will expand regardless of a shrinking population. But most years you don't have that, right? Most years you have the same thing you had last year. And so if you have a fertility rate of 1.7 when you need one of 2.3.
Well, yeah, you fix that, right?
Well, the U.S. You can get either get people to have more kids, you can incentivize that, or you import them. Those are the only two ways that you can increase your population, right?
Yeah, I'm all about option number one. What you do is that you ban abortion. Again, I'm a right winger. I'm telling you, I am a right wing Christian. I believe that life begins at the moment of conception. We are a child of God. Abortion is murder. That is my stand. That's all right. But then people I will die on. But still, even if you eliminated abortion and had all these unwanted babies, I don't think you're going to get to 2.3 that way, right? I mean, you're still going to need. So I think the system is set. I mean, I think it's insane. I think personally, it's insane that the system is set up that you need to constantly expand the economy. It's why we're always selling more shit to people that they don't need. Well, here's my question, and I'm going to show my ignorance here, because I don't have your background. I don't have your education. Why is a recession a bad thing? Why is it that having a lower cost of living, how is that bad? How's the cost of my rent or my utilities going down bad? Sure, it's bad for the shareholders. Screw them. They do nothing for me. It's these bankers who are screwing me. So I don't mind if they take a haircut.
Okay, the real problem. Okay, so the main problem with a recession or a depression is that you end up, basically the economy seizes up and you end up with widespread unemployment, right? So, for example, when at the time that FDR became president in 1932, the unemployment rate was 25%. So, basically people couldn't eat. They couldn't, there was no, that's the problem, right? And if you have widespread unemployment, I mean, I don't have to explain why that's bad, right?
Sure, that's very bad. But here's my question though. It's going to happen anyway, right? I mean, with automation and AI and more and more working class jobs going away, one day that's going to happen regardless.
That's
because
true.
Those jobs are going to disappear. So why not just?
That's already happening quietly.
Of course it is.
There are people who are basically unemployment's already going up, but basically they're not counted because they're not counted as being part of they're not part of the worker participation rate, right? By the people, the statisticians in the federal government. So basically, the number of people who participate in the workforce is dropping. Effectively, they're unemployed, or they're in the underground economy, right?
Yeah. So then, why do you need a population that's always growing if you're bringing in more people that jobs by definition are not going to be there for? What's the point?
That's a good point. I mean, I personally believe in a universal basic income because the U.S. can afford it and it buys social stability. Pay people to stay at home. Also, if you pay people to stay at home, some of them are going to become entrepreneurs. They're going to be bored. They're going to start their own businesses, open their own stores, start new lines of work. It's going to be better for everybody. But
I agree.
I think, like we talked about the perils of attaching healthcare to work, something that was stupid going back to the 1940s. Attaching income to work is no longer relevant because of what you're saying. I mean, if we have robots doing things for us, shouldn't we be happy about that, celebrate it, and change the system accordingly?
Well, I mean, that's the way I look at it. But what the hell do I know? I mean, here in my town, we don't have the traffic problems that you have. The traffic problems,
sure.
The traffic problems we have are cows blocking the roads because they're being herded and they decide to stop. So it's first world versus third world problems, right? But at the end of the day, though, if you have a consumer model, but the jobs that are making the crap that people buy are being automated out, why then do I need to go bomb the crap out of Nicaragua for whatever reason, import a quarter of their population to come do jobs that quote Americans won't do because robots are doing them, or because Americans are not getting paid enough money to afford the crappy health insurance, so that way when they get sick because they're shoveling cow crap in Louisiana, I mean, who the hell would do that? It makes zero sense.
Well, look, I agree with you on that. So, all right, we're gonna have to leave that there because we're running late. Yeah, we did, and that was. I'm glad that Steve talked a little bit about about his meeting with Tom Homan. I'd like to hear more about that at some point.
Me too.
But Tom Homan's a true believer. All right, so anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks very much to PutinBot Gaming, aka Robbie West, guest co-host today and all week long. Thank you for your support. Thanks for moderating the chat. Please go check out PutinBot Gaming, the gaming channel. Please subscribe on Rumble, either paid or unpaid. If you're doing it on the paid, you got to do it while we're still live. So hurry up and do it now. Don't dawdle. Please subscribe on YouTube and follow us.
For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can help keep the show viable.
And it'll probably keep you at least as awake. If you enjoy what you see, what you find value in what we're doing, please help us continue. So blah, 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 fully independent. And we rely completely on you guys. So subscribe. Oh, please.
Let me say something real quick. One thing I'm gonna let y'all know that we have a library. I'm going to be dropping a lot of the old segments, a lot of the show hits. They've already started hitting now. They're going to be going on YouTube first because I'm trying to build a subscriber base because I want money to be able to pay for my crappy health insurance. And then they'll be going on Rumble a day later. So keep an eye out for those. Okay. All right. And with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Robbie. We'll see you guys all tomorrow. And thanks again. Bye, thank you, everyone.